app that I use to record both of my podcasts called Spotify for Podcasters. You too can download it, start your own podcast, maybe make video podcasts. Or if you want to make a little coin, baby, with your podcast, you can do so using Spotify for Podcasters. So download the app today.
What is going on, everybody? We have our own playlist now up on Spotify that we have put together of just a handful of several different songs that we like to listen to throughout the day that just kind of help us get through the day. So go check out the playlist, see what you think. Let us know some songs that you would like to hear on the playlist, and we'll see if we can get them in there. But we're going to be changing the playlist up throughout time. So it's not always going to be the same songs, but come check it out. Tin Roof playlist over on Spotify.
Next thing I wanted to bring up before we got into discussing album covers was, seems like we've finally kind of made it away from inclement weather for a little bit, which will be a nice reprieve after all the craziness. Like Monday last week was crazy because the ice was so thick we couldn't even run, and then we worked doubles to get caught up, which was really cool. We worked really hard to get caught up, and by Friday we were just running Friday routes. We didn't have to run any other routes, so that was really, really nice. Now we are going into a week where it looks like the weather, like the temps are going to be pretty good, and things are going to be pretty chill, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I've been feeling go here lately. Like my schedule hasn't seemed to like gotten into a groove the way I had hoped, but been trying my best to like work through that and do a well, what I can, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I guess we're ready to dive on into discussing album covers. One of the first ones that I wanted to look at, we're going to actually start with country music, because I feel like with country music it's a little bit harder to like think of like iconic album covers, for the sense of like most album covers are like feature the country artist on it, which is fine. It's, you know, something significant to the genre, but we do have a few that will feature the artist on there like that. But then you have some like the one by Cody Jinks where it's like Lifers and the Adobe sessions both have really, really cool, unique artwork. Where like for Lifers, it's the old man, you know, walking in front of the wall, and there's like cactuses and stuff in the fence post, and you see the mountains in the background with the sunset. One of my favorites, really. And then, you know, Adobe sessions, that really cool Adobe building. One of my favorites to observe as well. It's just, it's neat. I could look at album covers for a long time just because they're so I mean, it's a type of art that I really enjoy, because it takes creativity, just like a book cover. And I think about that a lot too. Like if I were doing like whenever I write a book, I want the book cover to stick out, obviously, but I always think of it more like an album cover than a book cover. Like, man, what would get me to buy this if it was, you know, I want it to look cool like an album cover, more so than like maybe what a typical book cover looks like. And I think a lot of that comes from like doing poetry and stuff. But like my main books being poetry so far. But speaking of that, almost finished with my first book for the year. So we should still be somewhat on track for getting 5 books published this year. We'll see if it actually happens though, because that's a crazy amount, and I'm doing my best. But so yeah, Cody Jinks, Lifers, and Adobe sessions are both really, really cool in my opinion. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, first off, throw me a follow and a review would be super sweet, because the more that we grow this, the more people that will listen, I guess is I want to turn this into something like super, super special. I've got some really cool ideas. I had a idea that I wanted to do again, also for the merch store, which is taking me for forever. And I know I'm getting off on a tangent again. But I wanted to get a shirt out soon, and it's probably not going to happen. But be patient with me. Like this kind of goes into the whole schedule thing. Things have been a bit of a mess. But next, let's talk Brooks and Dunn. Brooks and Dunn's Steers and Stripes cover was cool because like it came around the time of 9/11, and they made it like American flagish, but they like kept it themselves by like instead of having the stars having their steer head that was their logo, it does have them on it, which I guess like since we are talking album covers and like especially since I've already said country album covers typically feature the artist, um, that is an iconic staple of a country album cover. And so to see something like this one, it's artsy, but it's got them, and it's it's neat and it's unique, and it's actually one of the first like CDs that I ever bought as a kid. I remember I had done something like maybe cut a couple of lawns or something. It was early spring, uh, and I had some money. There was a NASCAR store in the town that I like in a town near that I grew up in, because I grew up in like a little small town, basically at a gas station and a grain store and a bar. But the bigger town that was closer had a Walmart and a NASCAR store. And at the NASCAR store, I ended up buying like a bumper sticker for Michael Waltrip. And this was obviously all around 2001. So we had just lost Dale Earnhardt. So like Michael Waltrip was driving for DEI and had the Napa Auto Parts paint job. And uh, went to Walmart and bought this CD, and this was like one of the first CDs I ever had, and so like that's a huge like re- reminiscence, I guess. And about the same time, like almost a year later, I think another one of my favorites, album cover wise, came out. Montgomery Gentry's "My Town." I thought it was neat because like it shows them like walking down the like side of the road with the water tower and stuff from the song in the background and whatnot. So I thought that that was a really cool touch. Uh, and then one of my favorite country musicians is Johnny Cash, and sticking true to like the theme of having the artist on the front, I think you cannot pass up the Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison album cover because is it's just such an iconic photo. It's on T-shirts. It's uh, I mean, it's everywhere, and it it sticks out. It is now a piece of art in its own right, which is really really cool. Uh, just neat. I can't think of another word for it. And you can like tell like it's on stage obviously because he's like singing in the mic and everything, and like the dude's sweating. So and that's the thing. Like doing being in a band, being a singer or whatever. Like those lights are hot, and they beat down on you, and then you're moving around and everything else, and it's a like you, it can be a task. uh, but sticking with Johnny Cash for a minute, I wanted to talk about his American Recordings cover, uh, and his American Recordings 2 cover because both were really neat and unique. In like these are his later years, so like we're getting ready to lose him at the point these both came out, and they're very very unique. Like with him up against the barn for American Recordings 2, and then American Recordings, he's got like the two dogs with him, and he's standing at the edge of some sort of field. It almost looks like CRP, like it's just like wild grass. But I cannot skip up Ragged Old Flag. Ragged Old Flag's cover is really really cool because it shows the tattered war torn flag that Johnny Cash talks about in the song, and then like obviously him like pointing at it in the denim jacket, which is super cool. Um, I think that's one that like people need to go back and listen to this year. Like, and actually, you know what? I'm gonna try and get that on the playlist today. On the Tin Roof playlist today. So yeah, we're gonna do that for sure. So I think people do need to give that a listen to, because it reminds us where we've come from, and like it's a huge piece of Americana in my opinion, because it does talk about like all the things that this country has had to go through to get to the point of where we were whenever the song was recorded, and even like to now. And so like I'm not a big like singer. uh I'm tone deaf. I'm not very good at all that, but Ragged Old Flag is like a spoken word kind of thing. And so I would really like to this is probably a little silly of me, but I would love to do a cover of Ragged Old Flag, and then go right into a poem that I've written about Johnny Cash, because I think like backing those up like back to back would be really, really cool, and doing like a thing. So maybe that's something I try to do this year. I don't know. Just a random thought there as well. But then like you can't forget Blood, Sweat and Tears, because that album cover, I remember actually like going into a record store, and it was like an antique record store or something. It was like half record store, half antique store. I can't remember, but I remember thumbing through the albums and coming across this, and I was like, "That's a really neat cover." I had never seen it before, and I thought it, like, it's really stuck like in my mind, because whenever I was working on getting ready to do this uh, episode, and I was sitting here thinking about like different ones. I was like, oh, what is that one where he's on the cover and he's like surrounded by like red smoke essentially? And I started searching. I was like, oh, it's Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And I've listened to like every single song on the album. Like John Henry's Hammer is like such a fun song. I really enjoy his version of like the Legend of John Henry's Hammer. It's fantastic. But moving on, kind of Highwaymen with or well, the name of the album's Highwayman, but the Highwaymen, Waylon, Willie, Johnny, and Chris, and that Highwayman uh, album cover where like they're drawn into like the clouds over the mountains and stuff is just super, super cool, very unique. Definitely one of my favorite album covers for sure, because like it's one I picture in my head often. Definitely one of my favorites. But talking about Waylon, one of the coolest ones that he had ever had, he's got a couple really cool ones, like Nashville Rebel definitely gets an honorable mention here. But the Eagle was super, super cool looking, very well drawn, and is kind of outside the norm here because it doesn't have him on it. And so, like, I thought that that was really cool for that aspect. But in more recent years for country music, would be Tyler Childers live on Red Barn Radio 1 and 2. Tyler's album covers are always unique. Another honorable mention here would be Country Squire. But I wanted to talk about this one because, like, the skeleton, like, being more at the foreground from the actual, like, silhouette of, like, the wolf's body, essentially, and, like, the paisleys in the background. And it the like I would call that more like a red moon than like a sunset situation. Although it does look like a sunset, I feel like it's more of like a reddish moon in like my own interpretation there. Uh, I would have to say that I wasn't going to involve any Chris Ledoux albums in this one, but his "Sing Me a Song, Mr. Rodeo Man" is cool for a totally different reason. And the reason it is totally cool is because it actually features him riding a bronc, which he was a professional horse rider and like in rodeo or whatever. And so showing like seeing him like doing his other thing that he was really well known for is absolutely awesome. Like he he was like a true cowboy, and like I just think that that cover is like awesome, because how many other uh country artists or any other type of music artists can say, hey, I was out here riding horses, wild horses, and taking like using the picture for my album cover. Pretty sure he's the only one, at least like to this point. But speaking of cowboy guys that are country musicians, Coulter Wall has some really cool ones. Like the coyote is pretty simple looking, but it's still, or I guess, is it? I don't think it's actually called the coyote. Imaginary Appalachia. That one is really, really cool because of the coyote with the cigarette. Well, I think we've talked about country music enough, and we will go ahead and move on to more metally side. Kind of like in between, I would have to mention of Church's Creaker 2 and Creaker 1 albums. They are they're unique in some very cool ways. Like they show dead birds in uh in different settings. So like Creaker 2 is like a blue jay that like basically you see like the back half of the bird, like the feet and the tail. Whereas the other one, I'm not quite sure what bird that is, but that's like an actual bird like he found laying on the ground for the Creaker album, and like the broken glass and everything on the Creaker album. But like Creaker 1 looks really, really cool to me. Creaker 2 is unique because like whenever it dropped, he actually got a nod from Elton John on Elton John's radio on Sirius XM, and like Elton John talks about, I can't remember what song it was from Creaker 2. Might have been Ghost Ranch, but like it was featured on the Elton John radio and like played a couple of times. So that's kind of a big deal for an independent guy like Upchurch. But moving on to like actual metal ones, I have to talk about Metallica's Kill 'Em All. It's their like debut album, and it's very thrash metally, but the cover for like the time that it came out is like so unique. Um, because it's almost like the hammer looks like a photograph, but then like the hand almost looks more like a shadow, and then like the blood is definitely drawn, as you can tell. But it's a very another prominent, iconic album cover that really sticks out, and it's one that I really, really enjoy. Got some really cool songs on there, like "Jump in the Fire" and stuff. So yeah, definitely a good one. And there's so many great rock albums to choose from for this, especially so Iron Maiden, like all of their album covers are iconic and unique, and they all feature Eddie in different forms. One of my favorites though is Fear of the Dark, where he's like growing out of a tree and he's got like twigs and limbs and stuff growing out of his skull, like for hair and for a goatee, and like the really long fingers and stuff, like really creepy looking. Like one of my favorites. I also have to mention like Caught Somewhere in Time, because like Eddie as a robot that is all like Terminator looking, like he's there to like eliminate somebody, is really, really cool. And there's some really cool ones out there by them. Another iconic one, I actually have a pair of Vans that has this album on it. It's Iron Maiden's Power Slave, and it's just like the Eddie in the Egyptian artwork, like he is. It just looks so, so cool. It stands out so much, like just unique again. It actually feels like Eddie may have actually been an Egyptian statue at some point. Like it feels real. Uh, Definitely one of my favorite drawings, though. It's really, really cool. Um, the Whoever drew this, which sitting here looking at it, I kind of wish I would have like given more of a nod to the people who did draw these and like go into more depth on that aspect. So maybe that's something I do in the future. Um, it's just it was hard to do like a lot of research, and I wanted to showcase a lot of different artwork during this, and so uh they kind of made things a little difficult as far as like trying to figure out where I was going to go and stuff. But you live and you learn, and it's only our first season. We've got however long we decide to keep doing this to grow. So Another really cool one would be Motionless in White, Scoring the End of the World. They've got a couple of really cool album covers, but Scoring the End of the World kind of goes along, like hand in hand with talking about Caught Somewhere in Time, where you got the robotic hand in this one, like holding a fire globe, not so much a snow globe, because like it shows the earth on fire and stuff. So I think that that's really cool, and yeah, just like super super neat. Uh, got some really good songs on there, and that's another thing that goes with all these albums is a lot of these albums have some of my favorite songs on them, and that's probably why I link to them as well, because there's so many good songs on these albums that are shown here. Uh, Another band that like just has such crazy cool artwork would be Killswitch Engage. They have the End of Heartache, where it's like the concrete heart with like the nails pinned into it and the blood red soaked hands. This was on T-shirts all over. Like this had to have been Hot Topic's like top selling T-shirt back in the early 2000s, because I remember seeing this thing everywhere at school. Uh, Anybody that was a Killswitch fan had this shirt, and I mean, it's a cool one. If I would have been allowed to have one, I definitely would have. More recently though, Atonement. I thought Atonement's album cover was really cool with the lion and the dragon scales or whatever underneath the lion, and like the fire coming from the lion's eyes and all over the place. It's just really cool and unique. Oh, is that a skull there? Can't tell. It looks like there might be a skull kind of like hidden into the drawing as well. So that's really cool. And that one actually is cool because that's like one of the more popular ones since Jesse Leach's return. So yeah, Atonement's a really cool one for sure. And then Killswitch Engage's self-titled Killswitch Engage album, where it's got the jaguar on the front and it shows like the lines coming from the mouth, almost like a roar is happening there. Although, like, I never noticed the forked tongue until now. So, like, the forked tongue coming from the jaguar is kind of interesting. Um, in certain ways, it's simple, but in certain ways, it's like really artistic and intricate. And so, yeah, definitely some really cool artwork there. Has another one of my favorite songs on that one, Starting Over. Uh, I think that one's actually on the Tin Roof playlist right now. And that's another thing. Like, if you haven't checked out the Tin Roof playlist, definitely check it out. It offers some of my favorite songs, and we're keeping it clean over there, so you don't have to worry about content, language, and such. So that is a plus. But moving on, In Flames also has some really really cool album covers. The one I chose to discuss was A Sense of Purpose. It's really cool looking because like it's a hallway with a trap, like a hole in the middle of the floor with like a rainbow creature coming up out of it, and then at the end of the hallway, like one of the walls has a mouth with a lot of teeth in it and stuff, and um, the guy has like horns made out of his hair. It almost kind of reminds me of like a more grown up Where the Wild Things Are in a sense. It's really neat looking, and like I feel like there could be like a whole story that goes into that one. And more recently for them, their most recent album, Foregone, is unique in a way that is cool. It kind of reminds me of like D&D, because like it looks like something you would see in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like the tall creature monster thing that actually, like, there's puppet strings that go down towards the little people that are like walking up the stairs and stuff. And if you listen to it on Apple Music, the drawing will actually move, and so like it looks like he's actually puppeteering the souls or whatever, the light people that are walking up the stairs. And so I think that that's really cool. And like there's an instrumental in that, and there's actually faces even in the creatures robes, which is really really cool. there's actually an instrumental song on like that opens the Foregone album that is fantastic. It's just like some really nice, cool, chilling riffs that I really, really enjoy. And I think I might have put that one in the playlist. I'll have to go look. I'm sitting here thinking about all these now that I'm sitting here talking about. And I'm trying to think of like, oh, well, it would be easy for them to just go over there and click it. Is where my mind is. But yeah, man, In Flames is one of my favorites as well. Especially for artwork. They like their artwork on their albums is top notch. But we've been going for a little while now. I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. Check us out on YouTube. I meant to mention it earlier, but I think I got off on a tangent and then wanted to hurry up and get back to talking about album covers. But on YouTube, this will be featuring the album artwork instead of how the videos normally go. So if you want to like go look at all these albums in one spot, that would definitely be where you could go. And yeah, be sure to like, follow, give us reviews, help us grow, share it with friends, give us comments. It's been hard to keep up with social media here lately with everything that's been going on, but I have been doing my best. I'm looking forward to growing this and doing more. If you have any suggestions, I'm wanting to do videos of some sort on YouTube and TikTok to kind of like help grow this. And I'm having a hard time deciding on like what I want to do for the said videos. So if you have an idea what you would want to see us do over here at 10 Roof on the YouTubes and on TikTok, let us know. But hope you guys have a great rest of your week. It's high time we get things rolling. So we will catch you right here under the 10 Roof.